Today, we're digging into an ancient mystery, one that's been hiding in plain sight right under modern-day Savannah, Georgia. It's a secret that's been buried for over 5,000 years, and honestly, it has the power to rewrite the history books. So let me just ask you a question. When you think about ancient engineering here in the Americas, what's the first thing that pops into your head? The incredible pyramids in Mexico? Maybe the cliff dwellings out west? Yeah, those are amazing. But what if I told you the oldest piece of engineering is something else entirely? Well, it might just be this. Tucked away near Savannah, Georgia, there's an earthwork called the Bilbo site. And look, this isn't just some random mound of dirt. We're talking about a sophisticated complex, a man-made island, a harbor, and a canal, all built around 3040 BC. To put that in perspective, that's 1,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza was even started. Just let that sink in for a second. Okay, let's really dive into this. Because, finding a structure this old and this complex completely flips the script on the traditional story of simple, nomadic hunter-gatherers. This changes everything we thought was possible for people on this continent so long ago. So picture this. The Bilbo site was built in a tidal freshwater marsh. I mean, that's a really dynamic, challenging place to live, let alone build. But the people here didn't just settle near the marsh. They actually engineered it. They built a totally artificial, stable environment right in the middle of all that water and muck. For its time, this was an absolutely incredible, almost unbelievable feat. And you can just see the scale of what they were trying to do here. The whole complex had a canal connecting it to the Savannah River. That canal opened into a huge, circular harbor that they dug themselves. And then, right in the center of that harbor, they built an island. So this wasn't just a place to crash. It was basically an ancient port, a bustling hub designed for a life lived on the water. So, the big question is, how on earth do we know all this? Well, the story of the Bilbo site is really a detective story. It's about archaeologists painstakingly peeling back the layers of time to uncover the secrets buried underneath. A lot of what we know comes from the work of pioneers like Antonio Waring and later William Hogg. You can see on this map where they laid out their excavation grids. And the things they pulled out of the ground, wow, it was extraordinary. Not just bits of pottery and tools, but these beautifully crafted artifacts like bone pins, which give us a little hint of a very rich cultural life. This is where the real magic happens for archaeologists. They can essentially read the ground like a history book. We're looking at a drawing from one of the excavations. It shows 10 different layers, or zones. See that blue clay at the bottom? That's the original marsh floor. Then, on top of that, you have layers of charcoal, then a thick layer of oyster shells, sand, earth, all the way to the top. Each layer is like a different chapter in the site's story. And hidden in those layers was the key: charcoal. You can radiocarbon date that stuff. A really important sample from the main living area came back with this date, 3,730 years before present. That gives us a solid date for a major settlement around 1780 BC. But, and this is the kicker, other evidence from the deepest, oldest levels suggests the whole project kicked off much, much earlier, closer to that 3500 BC date. So when you put all these clues together, you start to get this amazing picture, not just of what they built, but how they actually lived. And let me tell you, this was not some primitive, just-getting-by existence. This was a thriving, really sophisticated culture. As the archaeologist Dr. Morgan Crook put it, these people were absolute masters of their environment. They had this complex economy where they used everything the coastal world had to offer, from the deep parts of the river all the way to the forests on higher ground. I mean, just get a load of their menu. The huge shell mounds tell you oysters were a big deal, and they were harvesting them from healthy, growing reefs. But they were also hunting white-tailed deer, raccoon, even alligator. They ate terrapins, all kinds of fish, and went foraging for hickory nuts and wild gourds. This diet just shows how deeply they understood all the different ecosystems around them. And their technology was just as clever. They were true pioneers, creating some of the very first pottery in North America by mixing things like Spanish moss into the clay. Their toolkit was also full of specialized gear. For instance, they made these soapstone discs with holes in them. The idea was brilliant. Heat the stones in a fire, then drop them into a container of water to boil food. It's a technique called stone boiling. And here's something that's just so cool. Because the site was so wet for so long, organic things that would normally rot away were perfectly preserved. So what you're seeing here, these aren't illustrations.
These are the actual hickory nuts and gourd seeds they were eating thousands of years ago. It just makes it all feel incredibly real.
But maybe the most incredible part of all is how they lived. The evidence points to their homes not being on the soggy ground, but up on timber platforms, pile dwellings, raised high above the marsh. Just try to imagine it. A whole village on stilts, with walkways connecting everything, and the tide just flowing right underneath. That is a level of architecture you just don't expect from so long ago. It's mind-blowing. Now, to really grasp why the Bilbo site is such a big deal, we kind of have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Because the people who built this place, well, they didn't just appear out of thin air. So, the Bilbo site gets its start at the beginning of the Late Archaic period, about 5,500 years ago. But look at the period right before that, the Middle Archaic. On the Georgia coast, archaeologists call this time an occupational hiatus. It's basically a giant, mysterious gap in the historical record.
This chart makes that mystery super clear. We've got hundreds of sites from the early Archaic. And then this huge boom, a population explosion in the Late Archaic with more than 500 sites. But that little bar in the middle, it's a huge drop. It's as if people just vanished from the coast for a couple thousand years.
So, what happened? That is the central puzzle of the elusive Middle Archaic. Was there a real population crash? Did people just change their lifestyle in a way that left fewer traces? Or, and this is probably the most likely idea, are all their villages and camps now just underwater, lost to rising sea levels? We just don't know for sure. And that whole question of lost history brings us right back to today, because this ancient story isn't just about the past. It's about our responsibility to protect what's still here. You see, for all its importance, the Bilbo site is not a famous, protected national park. And as this Reddit user points out, there's this real sense of frustration that a piece of history this significant isn't treated with the same respect as other younger sites.
And the threats are very, very real. You've got urban sprawl from Savannah creeping closer every year. You've got looters digging for artifacts and doing who knows how much damage. And kind of ironically, the same rising sea levels that might have hidden the older sites are now threatening to wash away what's left of this one. It's a race against time.
And this isn't a new problem. This map from 1864 shows the whole area around the site already carved up into canals and fields for rice plantations. The pressure on this landscape and the history buried inside it has been going on for centuries.
Which really leaves us with one last big question. The Bilbo site was a secret for millennia, a testament to this incredible, forgotten chapter of human history. And it just makes you wonder, how many other ancient wonders like it are hidden just beneath our feet, right under our cities, waiting to be found, or paved over and lost forever?